coming
You said
up.
that the people in Egypt today don't look black, right?
Right.
So let me ask you a
the ones
question.
that are ruling Egypt.
Right.
And
So,
yes, you
so let
do
me ask
have
you.
some black-looking folks live over there, but
Right.
they ain't doing nothing.
Well, let
They're
me
just
ask you a
sitting back
question.
looking at the Egyptians making the country great in the
But
same way
they
the
are,
blacks
no,
are doing over here, man.
but the blacks in Egypt are Egyptians. So when you say the Egyptians, you're saying the Egyptians are making the country look
The
great.
one
But
that
yeah,
don't look like y'all.
you mean the one that don't look like us?
Yeah,
What about
you
the ones
guys.
that don't look like us?
What?
What about the ones that don't look like us?
They're the one making Egypt great. They're the
Okay,
one
so
that
I'm asking you. So I'm asking you a question. My question to you is, why is it that those people who are running the country in Egypt, why is it that they don't look like us?
Because they are the original Egyptian.
And that's where you're wrong. I don't want you to give your audience misinformation. You just said that they're the original ones.
I've seen them before. I know Egyptians.
You got it backwards. They are not the original ones. They are descendants of those who are not the people who created the state of Egypt.
So they're lying too?
Yes, they are.
So the white people lying, the Egyptians lying, the Jews are lying. Everybody that's doing great are lying about the blacks. Our blacks don't do better. If they're so smart,
right,
and they believe they're the head of everything, why don't we see them doing better? They're destroying. They're not building anything. White people who are alive today has nothing to do with the condition of the blacks.
Right.
And so blacks are unwilling to have a fair and real discussion.
Okay. So here's the problem. There is inequity in your conversation. You keep speaking about how hateful black people are towards white people.
Yes.
And the issue with that is that you are basically advancing an image that is it belies the actual facts. And the actual facts is that the hatred is mutual. It's not one way. It's a mutual dislike and hatred. It certainly is.
No, it's not.
It absolutely
it's really
is.
Not.
It is. But here's the thing. It's unfair.
really not.
It is. I know that it is because I live in America. I live in the same country you live in.
It's really not. It's an illusion to think that.
It certainly is. No, here it is. If you make a conscious choice not to see it, so here's the thing.
No,
right?
I can see what's going on, man.
No. Okay, Jesse, here's the thing. The hatred is mutual. It doesn't require for you to agree with it. It doesn't require for anyone on your staff to agree with it. The hatred is mutual. That is, and by depicting it as being one way, you are going to be part of the problem and not part of the solution. Rather than saying, hey, look, here's a list of reasons why, or here's a list of grievances from both sides. Here's a list of grievances from white people, why they strongly dislike black people. Here's a list of grievances from black people, why they strongly dislike white people. And then you sit down, and you have an honest discussion about it. The point that I'm making to you and to your show and to your audience is that no one on either side is prepared to have a real conversation about race. And here's the thing. You cannot have that race.
White people want to have a real conversation.
Hold on. You cannot have that discussion divorced from history. It is impossible.
No, it's not. What?
You cannot have that discussion divorced from history. And I'll tell you why. Because people are walking around with racial illusions and racial delusions in their mind. That includes you. That includes your staff.
No.
That includes people that follow me. 1 second. That includes people that follow me. That includes people that follow people like Farrakhan and everyone else. It takes people who actually know history to put people on the same page. So that's when you need that. So that's when you need to start asking the right questions.
Let me ask you this.
What did you, hold on, Jesse, you said a moment ago, you said that the people in Egypt today don't look black, right?
Right.
So let me ask you a question.
The ones that are ruling Egypt.
Right.
And yes, you do have some black-looking folks live over there, but they ain't doing nothing.
Well, let me
They're
ask
just
you a
sitting back
question.
looking at the Egyptians making the country great in the same way the blacks are doing over here, man.
But the blacks in Egypt are Egyptians. So when you say the Egyptians, you're saying the Egyptians are making the country look great.
The one that don't look like y'all.
You mean the one that don't look like us?
Yeah,
what about
you guys.
The ones that don't look like us?
What?
What about the ones that don't look like us?
They're the one making Egypt great they're the
Okay,
one
so I'm
that
asking you. So I'm asking you a question. My question to you is, why is it that those people who are running the country in Egypt, why is it that they don't look like us?
because they are the original Egyptian,
And
and
that's where you're wrong.
and
That's what I mean
everything.
when I
But let
say
me tell you,
this is
I
what I
gotta
mean. You're
move
no.
on. No,
Okay,
no.
1 second before you move on. I don't want you to give your audience misinformation. You just said that they're the original ones.
I
You got it
seen them before.
backwards.
I know Egyptians.
You got it backwards. They are not the original ones. They are descendants of those who are not the people who created the state of Egypt.
So they're lying too?
Yes, they are.
So the white people lying, the Egyptians lying, the Jews are lying. Everybody that's doing great are lying about the blacks.
But that's the way history works. History
So
is
why
written by
blacks
who?
don't do better if they so smart
Right.
and they believe they're ahead of everything? Why don't we see them doing better? They're destroying. They're not building anything.
Well,
1
second. Hold on 1 second. This is not an aha moment. First of all, you say that they're not building anything.
They're destroying. Look what they're doing to America. Look what they're doing to Egypt and everywhere.
Let me ask you a question. Blacks in Egypt are destroying Egypt?
Yeah, meaning that they ain't doing nothing over there. Just sit back looking at the Egyptians working hard and doing their thing. Why aren't blacks doing better if they're so smart?
You said, why aren't blacks doing better if they're so smart?
Yes.
Okay. Doing better by whose terms and whose standards?
By their own turn, or by the country that they live in, or by other people.
Right.
They just build ghettos and they get in and they destroy white people, good stuff.
Okay, hold on 1 second. You said black people build ghettos?
Yeah.
I've never seen a black person build a ghetto.
Well, you've been in Africa too long now. You need to look around.
No, hold on.
Look what they just did to the country. They burned down buildings. They destroy businesses. They kill cops.
I want to say something. You had a guest on. 1 second. You had a guest on the other day. And I don't know if it was the other day because I watched your show, a few of them, just to get to know you a little bit better. I didn't want to prejudge you. And one of your guests was a Jewish professor who grew up in Lebanon. And I really enjoyed the interview. But the one thing that I noticed about the interview is that you interact differently with different guests. You afforded him a certain level of respect and a certain level of deference that I don't see you give to other guests. Other guests you don't take seriously. You will insult their intelligence, and you'll basically disrespect the discourse. And I think that that's unfair, right? And so I think that the same type of respect that you afforded him and that you extended to him, I think that you should extend that to all your guests because your audience will be the richer for it. You allowed him a graceful measure of time in which to respond to your questions so that people could really be informed. So he described the experience of the Jews in Lebanon and how they were at a disadvantage because of their numbers, right? And so if you look at
but you know what it is? Some people go like they talk too long and I'm running out of time.
Okay, no, I respect that. I respect that. But if you look at the black people in America,
but I have no resentment or anger toward any of my guests or anyone, right? And so it's just you deal with different personalities and you have different conversations.
I can respect that. I can respect that. So with my personality, if you ask me a question, what I want to do is I want to try to be, the reason I don't rush to answers, especially when somebody's asking me a question like what you asked me about black people, why aren't we doing better, right? The reason I don't rush to the answer, and you notice your first initial reaction because I said was The reason I hesitated is because when I answer questions like that, I want to be as responsible as possible. I don't want to just say the first thing that comes out of my mind.
Well, don't take too long because time goes by.
No, I respect that. If you say the first thing that comes to your mind, there's a really good chance that you may be wrong and you may answer emotionally, and it may be a reactionary answer.
So what was the first thing came to your mind when I asked, if they so smart, the blacks, why don't they do better?
I think honestly, it's a combination of a number of things. It's not just any one thing. I think it's a combination of a number of things.
What's the primary thing? What's the primary reason?
I think the primary thing is
Uh-huh.
I want to hold on. I want to say instinctively, I want to say racism.
Yep.
Okay, instinctively. But there is a part of my mind that is historically informed, and I would say that it has to do with certain things about ourselves that we have not yet confronted. And that's why I said earlier, neither side wants to have an honest conversation. There's certain things about Black history and African history that Black people will refuse to talk about. They will, because it doesn't make us look good, right? And so it's a lot easier to say white people, white people, white people, white people, white people. And I'm saying, wait a minute. I'm not saying that white people have not played a part in our dysfunction, but until you are willing to have an honest conversation about our own history, divorced from white people, before white people even showed up, we had certain issues. And until we discuss that, those issues are going to continue to plague us, and they are going to continue to play out, whether it's white people that are dominating us, whether it's Asian people that are dominating us, or whether it's Latin people that are dominating us. You first have to get your own historical house in order.
Each individual.
Well, not just as a collective and as
because
individual.
Unless you know yourself, you'll not ever be of any good to anyone else.